Obviously, the corruption is very bad for the country, not only in economic development, in terms of economic efficiency, and in many ways. Today, our speaker is going to talk about the specific on socio-cultural and psychological causes. Let us all wait for the Q&A time at the end of the session. Finally, advice from NH on behalf of NHRD Hosur chapter, all about our second wave. Though the number of COVID cases are reducing, please don't forget to wear your mask, frequent hand sanitization, maintaining social distance, and try to avoid unnecessary roaming outside to save you and your family, friends, and public. Once again, I thank. Thank you, Anissa. You can carry on.
Thank you so much, President Sir. So as is practice in every monthly meeting, we will now have the code of conduct. I request Mr. Rajesh, our treasurer, to continue the code of conduct, please.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Shanasa. Once again, good evening to all. It's always a pleasure to take a code of conduct with you all during your monthly meeting. Hope you all able to see the screen. Anusha, able to see the screen?
Yes, sir. Could we maximize it a little bit, please?
Okay.
It's okay.
That's okay.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Good. Okay. So, code of conduct of NHRD chapter. So, I will always strive to meet the highest evolving standards of competence in the profession and add value to the organizational success. I will deal with all stakeholders with utmost integrity and create an environment of trust leading to ethical success of my organization. I will ensure that I'm always reliable and consistent in all my actions by accepting responsibility for my decisions and actions, thereby creating credibility for my profession and myself. I will be objective in all my actions and decisions and foster fairness with firmness. I will conduct myself in a way that facilitates growth and development of all those who I am responsible for. I will strive to be a role model for all others and a champion exemplary practice of HR profession. I will respect the rights of privacy, will not use my position for personal gains, and ensure that there is no conflict of interest in what I do with any of my stakeholders. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rajesh, sir. So without any further ado, I would invite Dr. R. Krishnamurthy, our lead organizer, to give us a small introduction about the speaker for the night.
Thank you, Anisha. Good evening, honored present here. I'm very pleased to introduce today's speaker, Mr. S.G. Subramaniam, founder and director of Ganesh IAS Academy, Chennai. An eminent mentor, educationist, a gold medalist in physics, and an ardent supporter of social welfare and dignity gained a prominent position in society due to the exemplary work in his career with 21 years of experience in teaching public administration and Indian polity. He has made a distinct contribution to professionalization of coaching for civil services exam in Tamil Nadu by setting up its first private professional IAS coaching institute, Ganesh IAS Academy in Chennai in 2001. Through his organization, he is consciously offering value-based education to the young generation who aspire for civil services. From time to time, he had mentored about 16,000 plus aspirants through his organization and many more through his lectures and workshops. He is also involved in psychological and educational counseling, which is well received by the needy at the needed times. The primary objective of Mr. S.G. Subramaniam is to make Chennai a hub of civil services coaching, which is now stands achieved. Regarding his educational profile, he has a master's degree in physics from University of Madras. He has another master's degree in public administration from University of Madras. Regarding his contribution to education, he has authored many books. Some of them are Constitution of India and Indian Polity, Pearson Publications, Administration and Ethics, KM Publishers, Governance, KM Publishers, An introduction to the elections and the representation of People's Act came publishers. Tamil Nadu GK for TNPSC Group 1 to 4 examinations and approach to case studies. Mr. S.D. Subramaniam is the special faculty invitee for Pandit Deen Dayal Petroleum University, Gujarat. He wrote a series on government jobs in Kumudam Tamil Weekly. He penned many editorials in Daily Tanti, popular Tamil newspaper. He is the trustee of CS Matriculation School at Tanjavur. Regarding his social participation, he is the director vocational services in Rotary Club, Chennai Circle. He is a member of Chennai Book Club. With this, on behalf of NHRD Osu chapter, I welcome Mr. S.G. Subramaniam, founder and director of Ganesh IAS Academy, Chennai. Thanks a lot for the opportunity of introducing a veteran educationist to this forum. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, sir. Speaker, sir, the stage is all yours. Looking forward to having a very learning-oriented session from you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you very much, Anusha, ma'am, as well as Krishnamurthy sir and Palniappan sir for giving me the opportunity. And thank you very much, sir, for Krishnamurthy sir for giving a very detailed introduction about me. Thank you very much. And at this opportunity, I also greet you all participants over here as with folded hands to thank you very much. And I'm not wearing the mask because I'm sitting all alone over here at my home. But otherwise, when you are going out, please do not forget to wear the mask. After all, we are into very uncomfortable and pandemic situation. By the way, today we are to talk about corruption and its social psychological causes. In fact, after looking into the code of conduct, I felt that my job is already done because the NHRD code of conduct has the oath which each member of NHRD is to take up, has certain fundamental things like disclosing of the conflict of interest, which was found in the last point. That's actually the main reason why we have the corruption, as a matter of fact, becoming rampant. By the way, I have a PowerPoint presentation to share with you. Let me first share the screen to you and discuss about it in detail. Now, we all know what corruption is in general. Corruption is something that is a household term and we all know about it. We have heard about it. And many a time we have been part of it. We have been a party to it. We have been a party to it either by way of encouraging corruption, by bribing officials, bribing the policemen at the minimum. Many a time we forget to carry our driving licenses. At times we fail to carry our vehicle papers, or we jump signals, which is a very casual behavior in the Indian context. And when we are caught, obviously we have developed a tendency to bribe the policeman in the signal and get out of the situation without any iota of regret. Now, this is the most important thing which we have to talk about. Generally, we all know that we are part of the corruption, party to it, but yet we alienate ourselves from the very concept, very behavior, as though everyone else other than us are corrupt. And if anybody, if we all touch our conscience and speak, we all know that we are party to it, and we have been one of the important reasons and factors and instrumental in making the very idea going rampant. By the way, is corruption a real problem, and can corruption be eliminated, and is it a new problem? Definitely not. Definitely not. Corruption has been there ever since ancient times. In fact, Kautilya in his Arthashastra talks about corruption. Kautilya says, to find out whether the king's men is corrupt or not, is as difficult as to find out whether a fish underwater is drinking water or not. And to that extent, he doesn't stop there. In fact, he says corruption is something that is inevitable for people in power, people who wield power. He says to expect the king's men not to be corrupt is equal to expect a man not to taste a drop of honey that happens to be found at the tip of his tongue. Which means corruption has been there ever since ancient times. Arthashastra, we would have come across Arthashastra as a book, at least by name. It is a treatise, ancient treatise that deals with art of statecraft. Even in that, the author, Kautilya, talks about corruption, and he says corruption is inevitable, especially when there is power concentrated. And secondly, he says it's as difficult as to find out whether the fish underwater is drinking water or not, to find out whether the king's men are corrupt. And the third part, he says whether the king should focus on eliminating corruption. He says no, it's not possible. You have to only control corruption. See here, eliminating corruption is to control the corruption. So what do you mean by controlling the corruption? Controlling the corruption here refers to making it as difficult as possible for anybody to go scot-free when they are corrupt. See, we all have the practice of storing our valuables at our home. What do? We have a small locker, put it inside the bureau. If the bureau also has a small locker, put it inside the compartment, lock it with a key. Then you lock the bureau, put the key somewhere into the cupboard, lock that cupboard. Then you lock your bedroom, your private room. Then you lock your home. Then you lock your private. What do you actually do? Do you think that a thief who wants to steal your wealth will not be able to do it? All that what you're doing is delaying the process. Now he has to break the gate. He has to negotiate the gate. Then he has to break open your house. Then he has to break open the private room. Then he has to break open at least the bureau in which you store, then the locker, then the small locker. So it's only a delaying process. The same logic applies to controlling corruption as well. It's not that corruption can be eliminated, the administration will become completely clean. But all that what you can do is to ensure that it is difficult to go scot-free when somebody is corrupt. So what is that we have to do for that? That keeps changing from time to time. As ages pass, the problem also evolves. And along with the problem, the solutions for the problem should also evolve. So for evolving the solution, we need to understand the problem, and understanding the problem means understanding the causes of the problem. So in that process, we shall try to understand what are the socio-cultural and psychological causes of corruption, because there are so many causes. Corruption has many causes. There are administrative causes, there are political causes. Right? Apart from that, there are also socio-cultural and psychological causes. And now our scope of topic will be dealing with what are the social, cultural, and psychological causes of corruption. And when it comes to social, cultural, and psychological causes, the topic is very broad, and I am trying to confine my discussion to the Indian context. So I am trying to fix the scope of the subject discussion. The socio-cultural and psychological causes, particularly, especially at the Indian context. By the way, why is it corruption to be considered as so big a problem? So it's a very normal thing. Sometimes corruption actually is good. Sometimes corruption acts as a lubrication. And any machinery requires lubrication, and so government machinery also requires lubrication. What is wrong in it? Why are we so much bothered about this corruption? Are we giving a larger than life image to a problem that can be just wished away. No, it cannot be. Because, see, the picture on your screen, what appears on your picture, the picture that appears on your screen is the devastating earthquake that happened in Haiti in 2010. This earthquake claimed more than 10,000 lives on that particular day when the earthquake took place. And after that, after the disaster, how many people died is immaterial for this context. But on the day of earthquake, more than 10,000 people died within a flash of a second. The hindsight made us to understand that the death toll could have been controlled, though it is on the surface appearing to be a result of a consequence of natural disaster. It's actually a man-made disaster. The reason was most of the buildings that collapsed, causing a huge loss of life, was more due to poor quality construction material used, which the officials have approved without even applying their mind and applying the rule. The country had law, the country had rules to ensure that the building that are constructed would withstand certain pressures, particularly the natural disasters like earthquake. But yet, it didn't happen because Haiti, why are we more bothered about Haiti? Haiti is in the Pacific Ring of Fire, which is more prone to earthquake. So they had policies in place. They had rules in place. What made the rules to be flouted? The one point, what I can refer to you is nothing but corruption. So corruption is not just a day-to-day affair. In fact, corruption is something that can cost your life. Clear? So that is the reason why this picture is displayed. By the way, why do we otherwise focus on corruption? See, corruption is not a problem of one department or one society or one nation or one country. It is a global phenomenon. It is not confined to one nation. It is not confined to administration alone. More, it is extending to society. That is the most important botherance, in fact. When the administration is corrupt, you can take certain steps to control that. When the politics is corrupted, you can take certain steps to control that. But when the society as a whole is corrupt, when every individual mind is corrupt, that's going to be a very serious problem. And that's the reason why even the Constitution of India, Article 26, which confers upon every individual the right to vote, which we call as universal adult suffrage. It says there are 4 grounds on which the right to vote of a person can be deprived by law. One of the grounds is corrupt practices. Even the founding fathers of the Constitution were very much bothered and concerned about this problem of corruption at an individual level. Remember, at an individual level, they are not focusing on the administrative system. Article 326 is not a provision of Constitution that deals with administrative system. It is dealing with the right of an individual, that is the right to vote. The founding fathers were considering this problem in a much more serious note because they have gone to the level of depriving any individual the right to vote if he is found to be indulging in corrupt practices. Remember, what is the importance of this statement? Why am I focusing on this statement very particularly? Why am I harping on this statement in much more greater detail is because if you look at the preamble of the Constitution declares very clearly that the objective of the Indian Constitution is to ensure the dignity of an individual. When read along with the fundamental rights and the sanctity with which the fundamental rights are protected, of which Article 326 is implied. Right to vote is implied in the right to expression, guaranteed by Article 19, Clause 1, Subclause A. When the founding fathers were so much concerned and bothered about the individual dignity, they have quoted they have made it a point that if an individual is corrupted, then he shall not have the right to vote. It's very, very simple. It's very, very simple. So that shows the importance of the problem. By the way, even the United Nations has considered corruption as a universal problem. In fact, we have the United Nations Convention Against Corruption, and there have been elaborate laws made by every society, and the societies and each economy has paid heavy fees and huge losses due to this problem. That is the reason why it is becoming essential to deal with this problem as a whole. Now comes a very important question. What do we mean by this corruption? In fact, in the year 1964, the government of India appointed a committee on prevention of corruption headed by K. Santhanam. The committee says it is difficult to define precisely what the word corruption. In its widest connotation, corruption includes improper or selfish exercise of power and influence attached to a public office or to the special position one occupies in public life. So it's a very broad, very wide interpretation. Because corruption as such cannot be defined. What is corruption? Is it a behavior of dishonesty? Is it a behavior of lack of integrity? Maybe both, perhaps both fall into the definition of corruption. But however, we will not be able to define what corruption is in a much more accurate and in a definite terms. And in fact, very interesting piece of information is, though the committee had not been able to define what corruption is, though the committee had interpreted the term corruption and refrained itself from giving a very objective definition of corruption, the committee identified 27 different forms of corruption in India, of which the most practiced one is the speed money. The speed money. When I say speed money, it may appear to you very technical, but it is a speed money which we all give. When you want to get a birth certificate, when you want to get a caste certificate, you go to the VAO, pay some bribe. When you want to get a driving license, you don't want to stand in the queue. You pay the bribe, use the driving schools. What do? See, the very most common corruption, which has been now institutionalized and has gone unnoticed, is that which is practiced by every one of us, each one of us, you and me, everyone. We all have bought a car. We all have bought a two-wheeler. And there will be a cost. In India, the two-wheeler cost or the vehicle cost is presented in two different modes. One is ex-showroom price and the other is on-the-road price. When it comes to on-the-road price, they add few other costs. One is insurance, the other is registration cost. What is this registration cost? Has any one of us attempted to check what is the actual fees for registering, getting a car registered, and how much is that we are paying to the showroom from where we buy the car? Never. Silently, it has been institutionalized. And what is that money you are giving? It is the speed money. You want your car on a particular auspicious day. You don't give the registration department that much time. You want to push the file. This is what is called as lubrication. Aren't we doing it? It is that speed money. It is this speed money which was identified by Santhanam Committee of 1964. They said the most corruption that takes place in India is speed money. Similarly, the Section 13 of Prevention of Corruptions Act 1988 defines criminal misconduct. It doesn't define corruption again. It doesn't define corruption again. It defines criminal misconduct. What is a criminal misconduct? It is an offense. What is it offense? If the government servant, if a public servant dishonestly or fraudulently misappropriates or otherwise converts for his own use any property entrusted to him or any property under his control, using of misappropriating the official resources. Most of us would have studied Max Weber's bureaucratic theory, where he talks about the principle of separation. The resources of the office and the resources of the official are separate. When you don't do that, when you don't practice that principle of separation, the Prevention of Corruption Act, Section 13, regards it as a criminal misconduct. It is an offense. And it should not be done intentionally. Very important. In other sense, it's a very clear violation of what is known as canons of propriety, one of the important ethical values that one has to practice. By the way, corruption, according to Prevention of Corruption Act, is not a one-time affair. Look at Section 14. It says it is a habitual offense. Right? It is a habitual offense. Once you enter, once you get, you cannot escape that. So the law recognizes that corruption has become a habit. So that is the reason why we are now taking this topic of corruption. Let us move further to understand otherwise. What are the facets? In fact, there are corrupted institutions, and there are corrupted individuals, and there are grand corruptions that involve upon everyday's life. For instance, the examples what we quoted, like you pay a bribe to the VAO to get your caste certificate, community certificate. It's a retail corruption. So grand corruption is something that takes place at the bigger level, at the higher levels. We have bribes and we have scams and scandals. The scams and scandals are the grand corruption, whereas the bribes what you pay to officials on a day-to-day basis can be considered as retail corruption. So both are bad. Both are bad. In no way one is good. One cannot conclude that one is good, the other is bad. Both are bad. For sure, both are bad. Fine. What are the main concerns when it comes to corruption? Why are we again and again talking about this? This problem that is something that is a day-to-day affair. The main concerns are the growing permissiveness in the society for corruption. The society is permitting. Instead of having zero tolerance, we are having the maximum tolerance, and the maximum tolerance have gone to the next level of becoming, showing permissiveness. The society is permitting, it's accepting, it's becoming numb. It's becoming part of life, it's becoming a culture. It's becoming a matter of habit. We all know that in our schools, our teachers would have told us, what you do regularly will become your habit, and your habits will determine your actions will determine your habit, and your habits will determine your character. And it's now becoming character of people. And most important thing is people have gone to the permissiveness have seeped into the level that people regard that corruption is inevitable. And they believe that the effort to fight corruption is futile. People say, corruption is people of the permissiveness has gone to this level. At times, people think that what is wrong? After all, somebody who is in power, somebody who is in position, what is wrong if he does something in favor of somebody from his family? What is wrong if somebody he knows gets a benefit because of his office? What is wrong? People have started believing that it's inevitable, and sometimes they go to the level of justifying that behavior, isn't it? Why do they believe in so? And another side is people believe that the effort to fight corruption is futile. They say, I can't fight the powerful bureaucrat. I can't fight the powerful politician. After all, everybody does. What difference am I going to make if I am going to fight it? It's going to cost me. And there are bad examples shown. There are activists, social activists who are being killed for questioning against the corrupt officials. So people have started believing that fighting corruption is futile, and that adds on to that permissiveness. When people feel that, see, fearing to fight is different from considering that the very effort is futile. It's much more dangerous. If I fear to fight corruption, then I have a reason. If I say it is futile, I'm giving up. Meaning the society is giving up. When the society and the individuals in the society are giving up the fight against corruption, the permissiveness will be more. People who justify corruption will gain. And as a matter of fact, corruption will become a habit and it will become part of culture. That is exactly the problem. Then what will be its consequence? The most important consequence is the law-abiding citizen will lose confidence in the system. The very, very important point is this. It's not that any citizen will lose confidence. It is the law-abiding citizen who loses confidence. The law-abiding citizen is one who is an asset, who is the most important warrior, who you can rely upon to fight corruption, to uphold honesty and integrity in administration, to ensure that the good governance is ensured, good governance is provided. But unfortunately, the law-abiding citizen will lose confidence in the system. And if he loses the confidence in the system, then the system will be collapsing. Democracy will collapse. When democracy collapses, every system will collapse. So these are the main concerns. And that is the reason why we have to understand corruption from its all dimensions, and of which we are going to understand, we are going to analyze the corruption from its social-psychological, socio-cultural psychological approaches. What do we mean by culture? And what are the determinants of culture? See, every society has certain values, certain attitudes and beliefs, a system, attitude system, belief system, based on which there will be certain norms. And the norms are imposed, the norms are enforced by the society through its social sanctions. There are several norms, we all know. Social sanctions are very, very powerful. In fact, to quote Max Weber, the German sociologist, he says, the social sanctions are more powerful than the administrative sanctions, legal sanctions. The reason is, we all don't steal, we all don't murder, we don't commit murder because we don't fear the law. More than that, we fear for our social dignity, the social prestige, the family honor, etc. The society comes first. And so the religion, political philosophy, economic philosophy, education, language, and the social structure, these are some of the determinants of the norms, the values, the attitudes, as well as the sanctions. When these aspects erode, when there is a dent on these determinants, then there will be a deviance in the behavior. And corruption is one such deviant behavior. Where the socio... Why? The most important thing the society is that the rules which the society has for itself, and what are the rules? What is state? Why state is making rules? From the sociological perspective, from the political science perspective, state is an agglomeration of the individual citizens. The state is a representative of the society. The state has its own rules. But unfortunately, most of the rules are fuzzy. You know what is fuzzy? The rules are very much open to interpretation. The rules are very much dicey. The rules give quite a lot of room for interpretation. Result, it keeps itself open for interpretation, as a result of which People interpret the rules for their own good. People interpret the rules for in their own way that benefits themselves. Now, sir, this appears to be, you may ask me, somebody may feel that, sir, that appears to be an administrative reason. Why are you quoting it as a socio-cultural reason? Now, the problem here is the society, the social norms, which is required for obedience or abiding, compliance with law has been lost. We are in a social setting where we don't believe in rules, or we are hailed for. See, the social prestige is counted, right? The social prestige is counted when a person is able to bend the rules for his benefit. A person who is able to bend the rule for his benefit is considered to be powerful, is considered to be prestigious, is respected more, is feared. This is a result of the feudal mindset with which the Indian society was structured in the past. It's a legacy of the remnants of the structural injustice, right? We don't have an iota of regret when we bend the rules for benefiting ourselves. We don't have that regret. We need to have that pinch, right? We don't have that pinch. That is the reason why, say, I'm trying to tell you the cause of fuzzy rules, why the fuzzy rules are made. The fuzzy rules are made so that it gives power of interpretation to people in power, because this society regards bending of rules as a matter of prestige, as a matter of respect. It is now becoming a cultural cause. It has now become part of the culture. That is the main problem. Secondly, corruption has become a social law. Look at the way we vote. We don't choose the political leaders or political representatives who are with high level of integrity. Today, even today, say today is a former minister Kakan's birthday. A man who stands up or who is being quoted for the high level of integrity, the impeccable integrity that he was practicing, he was having, was displaying. Today, do we have them? They are figures who are quoted. They have become examples. They live as examples, that's all. We don't find, see, we can quote them as example. We always aspire to be so. We admire them, aspire to be so. Are we? We are not. Because the voting behavior or the determinant of voting is more caste and religion. So you don't mind voting to a person who is corrupt, who is known for his very low level of integrity, blemish integrity, just because he belongs to your community, just because he belongs to your caste. It's a very dangerous thing. And this factor, this is actually becoming socialized. It's actually becoming socialized. And thirdly, if you see, at the family level, corruption is now, see, you know what is socialization? Psychology regards socialization as the process by which a child learns how to behave, how to conduct himself or herself in a society. That process of learning is known as socialization. What does a child learn in our society today? From the family. See, in fact, family is a primary institution of socialization. A child brought up with the wealth amassed by corruption gets used up to that. The child will not have an iota of regret, or will not be able to differentiate between what is an integral behavior and what is a corrupt behavior, what is honesty and what is dishonesty. Now, this has become a social norm, isn't it? It has become a social norm. We don't have regrets. The families don't have regrets. We talk about sustainable growth, sustainable development, and intergenerational equity when it comes to environment, ecological aspects. But are we respecting the intergenerational equity when it comes to the values and beliefs that we transfer to our future generations. In a way, the children are subjected to moral abandonment, which the Constitution of India, Article 39, Clause F, purposefully says. It says it very clearly, very, very clearly. Children are not supposed to be subjected to moral abandonment. Today, in every family, the children are unknowingly getting morally abandoned. And this is all the more true when it comes to a family of powerful people who have the opportunity to be corrupt. So that's the reason why the Second Administrative Reforms Commission says, if at all we want to bring about ethics, if at all we want to eliminate corruption, we have to begin with children. The primary is to focus on the families. In the family, the primary is to focus on the children, because family is the primary institution of socialization, and second is schools, because the schools come as a secondary institution of socialization, where the child learns what is society and how to conduct oneself in a society. And another important reason, if you see the socio-cultural cause, when it comes to India, see, Indian society is a dependent society. We are a society. The society and individual are integrated. We cannot separate them. And what integrates us? The customary practices, the social values, the traditions. We are not isolated. We cannot think ourselves isolated from the society. We are more concerned about each and every behavior of an individual in India is more controlled by the thought of the society. When I say thought of the society, it is culture and the traditional customary practices. Every Indian has to earn for 3 generations. Each one of us have. Each one of us can understand this. We know. If I have a family, if I have a sister, my father has to ensure that there are certain customary requirements, customary essentialities that my parents have to do to their daughters, which is passed on to me as a duty. I am duty bound to continue the tradition and to do something to my sister. I'm just quoting an example. So I have to earn for certain commitments which my father leaves for me. I have to earn for my own generation, for me, my wife, my children, my household, my family. And then I have to do something for my future, meaning my future generation. My children, their well-being, as well as my grandchildren. So at any point in time, the Indian traditions and customary practices, the Indian culture demands every Indian to earn for 3 generations, which puts before him a great challenge. If you look at the social change, family is no more a production unit. Sociology says family can be a production unit as well as a consumption unit. But in the modern days, family is no more a production unit. Family is more of a consumption unit, meaning one person or 2 people in a family earns, whereas the whole family consumes the resource generated by 1 or 2. Now in India, the family is not father, mother and children. It is an extended family. We have an extended joint family system. Though we have the practice of nucleated families, still we are into an extended joint family system. Because the customary practices of our culture, the traditions of our culture do not allow us to get nucleated or get isolated from the family. So it is becoming essential for any individual in India to earn for 3 generations. It's a very high demand placed before him. Is struggling to handle it. It's quite natural that When you are powerful, you convert power into money. Power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. One of the important administrative statements that was put to test whether it is true. In 87% of the cases, this statement made by Lord Acton, the former British Prime Minister, turned out to be true. So, the cultural factor is very important for corruption. Similarly, traditionally, Indian society is a state-dependent society. If you look at Tirukkural or Sangam literature, any literature for that matter, it focuses on the divinity of kingship, the divinity of the leadership. So we are a state-dependent society. We cannot imagine living without a state. So the state's role has to be very, very, very important. But unfortunately, the post-independence period saw an over-regulated governance. The monopoly of the government increased. It resulted in what is known as governmentalization. In public administration, they call it as governmentalization. We turn everywhere. Look at any department, look at any field, any sector, you find only government. On the one hand. On the other hand, you see the population increasing and the poverty increasing. Right? Result, the demand was increasing because of the increased size of population, and we are already a dependent society, and because of more number of population reeling under poverty, becoming more dependent, this increase the discretion of the government officials. As it was said, power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. The more the discretion, the more rampant the corruption is. So the 3 Ds will result in 1 C. So simple. Another important thing, as we saw, the permissiveness, how the permissiveness to corruption has manifested. It is manifested in the form that the good behavior goes unrewarded. Not only that, to be a good person has now become a very difficult one. When you try to be good, people give a weird look upon you. You appear to be a character that is not, that you become somebody who is a hot potato to handle. Nobody wants to handle you. They feel you to be an impediment. Again, I can quote Second Administrative Reforms Commission recommendation, which says, the study of the Second Administrative Reforms Commission says, people regard honest officials as an impediment. They say honesty as people see, just imagine to what level the corruption has become, the permissiveness has been, deep-rooted. The Second Administrative Reforms Commission, the Fifth Pay Commission, and a study by the Indian Institute of Public Administration, New Delhi. They have identified, they have found that people are feeling that an honest official is an impediment. And any official is pretending to be honest in order to increase the bargain. See, honesty is a bargaining chip now. See how much the psychology has changed, you just imagine. So to see if I am good, I have to prove that I am good. And it's really it's fraught with difficulties. Now I get frustrated. Why should I be good? Because it's an easy path. I can tread the easier way. There are no thorns when I accept the majority behavior, so-called majority behavior. The elite, the elite of the corrupt elite. When I tread their path, my job becomes easier. Because the bad behavior is not only going unpunished, it is becoming extravagantly rewarded. The jurisprudence says it's not the severity of punishment, but the certainty of the punishment that will reduce crime. It's not the severity of punishment, but the certainty of punishment. Unfortunately, there is no certainty of punishment in India. So the bad behavior goes unrewarded. The cases of corruption cases are, how many years together it's going on and on and on. And it's getting extravagantly rewarded. You gain more money. So there have been a WhatsApp joke. each one of us would have come across. The good will ultimately win after, say, 30 years. But in the meantime, during the 30 years, the bad have already led a happy life, comfortable, luxurious life. And finally, what happens to the good? He would have been reeling into poverty. He would have been, living a life with all difficulties, but finally to win in an inappropriate time. So that's a most problematic issue. That's the reason why we just brush aside the conflict of interest. In the code of conduct, the last point was conflict of interest. Right? Why do people do away with this conflict of interest? Why do people brush aside the conflict of interest? People brush aside the conflict of interest because society has become materialistic. Society has become materialistic, very much consumeristic. See, we are now coming across newer forms of psychological disorders, sometimes something called as oniomaniac. A mania of buying online. Why? Consumeristic. Every now and then you find big billion day sale. Right? There are Monday sale, Tuesday sale, pink day sale. Pink day sale. They say that any couple who come with a pink dress, or any couple come with a pink, come to the shop and choose a pink dress, they will get 50% off. Society is no more. We no more have societies. We more have markets. A society is comprised of individuals, people. Today we have markets who have only consumers with buying power, right? Purchasing power. So people just brush aside the conflict of interest. What is wrong in it? Chalo jaane do. They just leave it across. And see, when there is a conflict of interest and you did not disclose it, and if you are caught on a later date, there is a loss of reputation and erosion of self-esteem. People don't care for that. Who is not doing? What have I done which nobody else has done? Right? It's a herd behavior, image of approval. Because this group behavior becomes a great influencer. People don't mind. People don't mind. See, disclosing of conflict of interest is required. It's a very, very important thing. Every corporate in this world today, they have a disclosure agreement. You have to disclose your conflict of interest. Is it not required to disclose your conflict of interest? Potential conflict of interest may not be real. It will not be real. Even if it is potential, there is a potential conflict of interest, you are supposed to disclose it. Do we really do that? No. And when we don't do it, do we feel or do we have a guilt consciousness? Do we suffer from any crisis of conscience? No. Why? Because the herd behavior we follow. Because it is justified when everybody does it. Media is very important reason for that. Media goes to justify anything. When I say media, I mean mass media, including our TV channels. The greatest influencer of human social behavior in any society like that of us is the serials. What do they display? Do they really show by behaving honesty and displaying integrity you get rewarded? No. So it becomes an influencer. And so people cheat and they throw away brush aside the conflict of interest, don't disclose, indulge in cheating, and they go to rationalize the cheating behavior. Because they say, what have I done? Has it harmed anybody? Today it is identified a simple, moral, rational crime, which everybody will do. How many of us really invest money to buy a book and read instead of downloading a pirated version? When we read a pirated version of the book, do we really have any iota of regret? Do we really consider that we are stealing the efforts of somebody? The intellectual property of somebody is being stolen? No, we don't have. Youngsters, they challenge and download a movie that is pirated. It's a challenge into it. We have, most of us, today we have OTT platforms. Previously, we used to have the DVD players and we buy DVDs. From where do we buy the DVDs? It is prohibited by law, but yet we do that. This is what is called a simple, moral, rational crime. SMARC. You cannot be punished. Right? You must have watched the movie called Onion. Right? That concept of onion is SMARC. Simple, moral, rational crime. You can rationalize that crime. What am I doing? I'm not doing anything big. In fact, when I'm downloading a movie, I'm popularizing the movie maker. I'm actually popularizing. He will not be able to market it. He will not be able to promote himself. No, I'm doing it. Remember, even the automobile companies have now come to the level of allowing the duplicate parts. Right? We are allowing duplicate. Why do we allow the duplicate part? We have allowed the duplicate parts because it will help us to sell the genuine parts. Right? So there is no iota of regret, which is not correct. And when it comes to the young officers, new entrants to civil service or new entrants to powerful position, there are two important techniques by which they are becoming corrupt. One is the foot in the door technique and the other is door on the face technique. The foot in the door technique is like, we all know the story of the camel in the camp. The camel first puts its leg inside and after that it enters and occupies the camp. So you will be asked to agree for a very small request. What is wrong in it? Kind of a SMARC. This is a token for making you to agree for a larger request. Same way, when you are not able to, when you slam it on and when you don't agree to this, when the foot on the door technique doesn't work for you, they apply face on the door technique, making you to accept. If I ask you, make a large request first and make the officer feel guilty or some sort of regret, so that in order to accept, what man, he is a friend of mine, why should I not do this? Right? Why should I not do this? So he asked for something big which I cannot do, so at least smaller thing I do. But both are corrupt. See, corruption cannot be distinguished by its size. Corruption is corruption. Wrong is wrong. There is no smaller wrong and a bigger wrong. Every wrong is a wrong and has to be avoided. And if it is committed, has to face the music and get to be punished. So in the scale of corruption, either you're 0 or your rank is 9. Either you are no way corrupted and integrity is unblemished, or you are 9. After 0, it is only 9. So when the society permits the corruption, when the society is becoming tolerant towards the corruption, when the cultural factors are pressing upon the individuals, obviously corruption becomes an inevitable factor of the society. I hope you all, I did make some sense to today's meeting for you. And thank you very much all, particularly NHRD, for engaging me for this speak, as well as giving me the time and opportunity, and all the participants who have been patient enough to listen to me. Thank you very much to all, and thank you very much. And I'm open to questions in case you have anything.
Thank you so much, sir. It was indeed very conceptual, and you spoke about jurisprudence and a lot of technical terms, which did throw us a little overboard. But we do understand where that comes from. It comes from a thorough understanding that you have about the concept of corruption, and so beautifully you have explained the socio-cultural causes to us. So as such, when I see from my chat, Mr. Gopalakrishnan Hari has just mentioned that in order to tackle corruption, what he says is if the punishment becomes a little severe, he feels that it can be controlled to some extent. And also all the maybe also the judiciary should step in with some really hard course of action for these people who get convicted, so that we may be able to reduce the kind of corruption cases that we have had. So one thing which was there in all of our minds was this particular news report that we read uh, a few months ago when this pandemic set in, where the Prime Minister asked for some data on corruption complaints, and it was related to COVID-19. So in a nutshell, if you could just tell us about that, after which maybe we could close the session, sir.
Yeah, by the way, see, when it comes to punishments, when it comes to any crime, other even include corruption included, it is more of the certainty of the punishment, as a jurisprudence saying is there. It's not about the severity of the punishment, but it is about the certainty of the punishment. We have to ensure that the punishment is certain. Many a time, our criminal justice systems is entangled with, it's entangled with more of procedural problems, procedural issues. The procedures are very cumbersome. If I'm permitted, if the time permits, I'll just give you a few note of it. When a corruption charge is filed against any officer or any legislator for that matter, first of all, they have to go and defend. They have to claim. They have to claim that they're innocent. When the charge sheet is filed, they have to first go for the petition of discharge. The discharge petition must be there. They have to fight the case. They don't do it. This is one procedural requirement which enables the offender to prolong the process. When you prolong the process, when the process is becoming more cumbersome and is delayed, obviously people will lose interest. Not every citizen is a warrior. He will not have the warrior attitude to fight against corruption. So when the procedure is more than novel punishments, as Mr. Gopalakrishnan has noted, more than novel punishments, we have to focus more on reducing the time delay in the process. We are going for fast track courts. Today, for legislators, we do have the fast track courts, but even in that, we have this discharge petition. The petition of discharge is not filed at all in many cases. And they delay. So this is the most important thing, I think, is a problem. Similarly, during the COVID time, the Prime Minister has asked for the corruption cases filed is more because these kind of pandemic situations will result in more of, it gives a chance for people to be corrupted. And in fact, we can go for another lecture upon how corruption actually manifested itself during the pandemic. How ethics have been the integral aspect and the ethical aspect of the medical ethics has been flouted. The social justice has been tarnished by the corrupt behavior. We can have one to that extent. We have the content in that part. But for the rest, because of the restriction of the time, I'm not dealing with that in much more greater detail. But my point is, if at all we want to eliminate corruption, we have to innovatively, we have to fight it continuously. And constant vigil is the only way out against corruption. And most importantly, we have to innovate the processes. More than the punishments, we have to innovate upon the processes. I think I've answered your question.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. So I would have a request to make, considering a really good response from your sessions. I'm getting very specific questions as well. So if I may request you to drop in your email ID in the chat box so that these participants may address their specific questions to you and get
Yeah.
a better detailed answer for that. We are running short of time, unfortunately, and it is a little regretful for me to be closing this very interesting session. Of course, like you said, of course, we could probably look at the possibility of dealing with this corruption regarding the pandemic in a different session, perhaps. So thank you so much for your time. I would now request Mr. Bhuvnesh, our Joint Secretary of NHRD Hosur chapter, to give the vote of thanks.
Before that, I'm sorry to interrupt. I have posted my email ID on the chat box. gan.report@gmail.com.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for that. And thank you, Anisha, for driving the session till the stage. Sir, to be very honest with you, today's session was a brutal, honest dressing down of the society that we are all part of, right?
Thank you.
And sometimes we need to be given a dressing down like this to make ourselves aware of our moral responsibilities, the ethical conscience that we need to maintain. I was always asked during the early days of my career, if you had to rate yourself on this skill, how much would you rate yourself? If you had to rate yourself on communication, blah blah, all of that. And when I was asked how much would you rate yourself on ethics, right? So even if I said 99%, I would have been wrong. So on ethics, you can never go even 1% below what has been expected. So this is a harsh reminder that we'll all need to, be the person that we are expected to, and especially education plays an important role where we know what all our moral science studies and our stories have did to us. And it is very interesting to know that corruption existed and has found a mention in the Arthashastra. That was very, very new to me. And now we know what happens to the students that you train, and we'll need to be so we can boldly approach them, knowing that they've been trained by such a great personality who has the heart and the conscience in the right place. So thank you for bringing this to us. Thank you for opening our eyes for a lot of things. I really had goosebumps in multiple places that you spoke about. We would definitely want to have a larger session on a similar topic, related topics. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you for being present here with us. I thank Dr. Krishnamurthy for bringing you to our forum, to have facilitated this session and to have made you interact with our NHRD members, the president of the chapter, Mr. Palani Kumar, our treasurer, Mr. Rajesh Kumar, for reading out the code of conduct. So, in fact, if this was a in-person session, sir, we would recite the code of conduct and the members would repeat after us. So that is a reminder that we give to our own members. So I hope we are setting some kind of a path, some kind of an example, some kind of a reminder to our folks that this is something that we'll need to follow and continue to do so. Thank you again from the bottom of my heart, and a very warm thanks to all the participants who participated on this. And so we've gone live on YouTube too. So this session was live on YouTube too. So we've had multiple viewers joining us from different parts of the country. And thank you again for being with us here today, sir. I hope all of you are staying safe wherever you are. So let's do our part in keeping ourselves and the country safe. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, sir. I'm humbled. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, everyone. Stay safe. Goodbye.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.